The Mask archetype is one used by Lumis and Umbra in their tag team duel against Kaiba and Yugi. Many of the cards these two rare hunters featured debuted way back in the 5th set of the game Labyrinth of Nightmare, with the boss Masked Beast Des Gardius coming out a few years later. The Mask cards do a variety of things, but their general theme is to restrict the opponent's moves, with the most prominent of these being Mask of Restrict that prevents tributing no matter what the situation. True to most archetypes and series of cards released early on, there isn't much of a cohesive playstyle to the deck, so the first goal is to fix that by tying these cards together. The second is building on the point of what the masks are all about, and that is restricting your opponent. We'll open up with the boss monster, starting with Masked Beast of Restrict. This is a ritual monster summoned by any Mask of card, and the restricting aspect of this card is that neither player can special summon monsters, so obviously a great floodgate against many of what goes on in the meta. Also has the effect that once per turn, if this card is targeted for a card effect, you can send one Mask of Spell Trap from your hand or face up field to the grave to negate that effect, so a bit more restricting on what your opponent can do to try and get rid of this card. And then finally, if they do get rid of it, it has a floating effect where if it leaves the field by an opponent's card, you can special summon one Masked Beast monster from your deck except itself, ignoring its summoning conditions. So that's going to be your previous cards, the Masked Beast and Masked Beast Des Gardius, as well as the next guy over here, which is Masked Beast of Chaos. This guy cannot be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 2 Mask Spell Traps from your graveyard. While you control a Mask of Spell Trap, your opponent cannot set cards, so that is the restricting effect of this guy. Also has the effect where you can send one Mask of Spell Trap from your field to the grave, then target 2 cards on the field and banish them. You can only use this effect of Masked Beast of Chaos once per turn. So a kind of souped up version of BLS and Dark Samorg wrapped up into one mass boss monster. Now we get into the support monsters, starting off with Grand Tiki Ancient that takes on the name Grand Tiki Elder while on the field, so you can use it to tribute for Masked Beast Des Gardius. Also has the effect where on normal summon you can add one Masked Beast monster or one Mask of Spell Trap from your deck to your hand, and if this card is sent from the field to the grave while you control a Mask of Spell Trap, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. You can only use this effect of Grand Tiki Ancient once per turn. So here is of course your starter, able to gather the pieces you need to bring out your Masked Beast boss monsters, as well as any of the mask cards you need for any given situation, however you want to restrict your opponent. Next up is Melkid the Four-Faced Fiend, the retrain of Melkid the Four-Faced Beast, and takes on that name while on the field for the same reason that you contributed for Masked Beast Des Gardius. Has the effect where if you activate a Mask of Spell Trap that targets a card on the field, you can activate one of the following effects: either add one Masked Beast ritual monster from your deck or grave to your hand, or negate the effects of the targeted card. So one thing to note about the custom support that we're about to see with especially the spell and trap card lineup is that I'm not creating too many more Mask of Equip cards. So think about some of the ones that were debuted back in Labyrinth of Nightmare, such as Mask of Dispel, Mask of Brutality. A lot of these have obviously been power crept, but for the sake of staying true to the cards that Lumis and Umbra used, I didn't want to redesign a whole bunch of different mask cards, but instead boost them with cards like this that reward you for using those cards by being able to trigger additional effects, such as being able to search out more combo pieces and such as being able to negate effects of other cards on the field. So for example, if you activate Mask of Dispel, this card activates by targeting a spell on the field. Melkid allows you to be able to negate the effect of that spell. Similarly with Mask of Brutality or Mask of the Accursed, you can equip it to an opponent's monster, then turn off its effects with the effect of Melkid. This next card works in a similar light, and that is Des Rogue Doll, which can be special summoned from your hand by targeting one Mask Equip spell in your graveyard, then equipping it with that target. Also has the effect where when it declares an attack at the start of the damage step, destroy cards on the field up to the number of monsters involved in that attack that are equipped with Mask of Spells and Traps. So again, taking advantage of the different masks lineup, particularly the ones that were debuted way back when, but being able to make the most of them with more powerful effects, such as Des Rogue Doll's ability to pop a bunch of different cards on the field, as well as to special summon itself entirely from the hand. And rounding out the monster lineup is another retrain of a Lumis and Umbra card, and that is Dark Shining Abyss. While in the graveyard, this card is also a light attribute, so opening up the deck for chaos cards. Also has the effect that you can target one Masked Spell Trap in your graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and special summon this card from your hand. And finally, if a Mask of Spell Trap card is activated, you get to draw a card. So once more, bolstering the effects of the power crept spell and trap lineup that are the mask cards by giving them additional effects through the effects of the monster cards. Starting off the spells is Mask of Ritual, so this is going to be your ritual summoner. This card can be used to ritual summon any Masked Beast ritual monster from your hand. I said ritual a whole lot just now. You must also send one monster you control that is equipped with Mask of Spell Trap to the graveyard, then equip this card to the monster summoned by this effect. So unlike most ritual cards, this isn't counting the levels of the monsters that you tribute. Instead, you just need any monster that is equipped with a Mask of Spell Trap, and then while this card is equipped to that ritual monster, if it would be destroyed, you can destroy this card instead. Next, we have Mask Exchange. So another searcher for the deck. You return one Mask of Spell Trap from your hand or face-up field to the deck, then add two Mask of Spell Traps with different names from the return card from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one of these per turn. So this is going to accomplish essentially what Grand Tiki Ancient does as well, by being able to toolbox your lineup of mass spells and traps to be able to restrict your opponent given any situation. Next, we have Mask of Greed, a continual spell that will actually function like the older mass spell trap lineup, where it restricts your opponent in some sort of way. And the way that this guy restricts your opponent is by preventing them from searching, because anytime your opponent activates an effect that would add a card from deck to hand except during the damage step, you can send one Mask of Spell Trap from your hand or field to the grave to negate that effect. Then you get to add a card from your deck to your hand, specifically a Mask of Spell Trap. You can only activate this effect of Mask of Greed once per turn. And rounding out the spells, we have the only custom designed equip spell to add to the mass spell lineup, and that is Mask of Duality. So again, one to emphasize the older ones debuted in the early days of the game, but did throw in a new one just in case. So this card activates during each standby phase. During your opponent's standby phase, you destroy one card on the side of the field of the equipped monster, and then during your standby phase, you destroy one card on the opposite side of the field of the equipped monster. Only activate each effect of Mask of Duality once per turn. So the standard way to use this card is kind of like a delayed way of destroying your opponent's monster. You equip it to an opponent's monster, then end your turn. During your opponent's standby phase, you can destroy the monster that is equipped to this card, and thus avoiding the effect that will activate during your standby phase. But it can really get rid of any of your opponent's threats. Starting off the trap lineup is Mask of Impregnability. So this is a card that was used in the anime and hasn't been adapted yet as a normal trap that targets one monster on the field and equips itself to that target. The equipped monster cannot be destroyed by battle, and while you control the equipped monster, your opponent cannot target monsters you control for attacks except a monster equipped with Mask of Impregnability. So this card functions very well, particularly if you're able to bring out your boss monster, since all the Masked Beast monsters have at least 3200 attack. You equip it to one of those guys and your opponent can't get rid of any of your other smaller monsters, allowing you to continue to plus off of them, whether that be drawing cards with Dark Shining Abyss, destroying cards with Death Rogue Doll, or negating effects with Melkit. And finally, we have another anime adaptation, and that is Masquerade Ball. It's a normal trap that where you target one face-up monster on the field and equip it with one appropriate Mask of Equip spell or one appropriate Mask of Trap that has an effect of equipping to a monster from your deck. So based on the older cards, that'll be Mask of Brutality, Mask of the Accursed, and then based on these new custom design cards, Mask of Impregnability and Mask of Duality. But it doesn't stop there, because this card also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it from the grave, then target one monster your opponent controls that is equipped with a Mask of Spell Trap. Take control of that target while it remains equipped with a Mask of card. So depending on whichever card you wanted to equip from the deck to an opponent's monster, particularly say a card like Mask of Brutality, you increase its attack by 1000 and then be able to take control of it as well. Alright, now to go through some combos with the deck. So like I said, this deck isn't going to spam a whole lot, but instead you can dictate the pace of the duel, and one of the ways that the deck does this is by taking control of your opponent's monster, specifically with Masquerade Ball, which allows you to target any face-up monster on the field and equip it with an appropriate Mask of card from your deck. So let's go with Mask of Brutality. And say we're equipping it to an opponent's monster. Now we can banish this card from the grave to take control of an opponent's monster that is equipped with a Mask of Spell Trap. So not only do we take control of their monster, it gains 1000 attack thanks to Mask of Brutality. And obviously there's a lot of utility in taking control of your opponent's monsters, whether that be something with high attack, a great effect, just getting rid of a threat on your opponent's side of the board. But the deck can make use of it in other ways. For example, you can use Mask of Rituals to send one monster you control that is equipped with a Mask of Spell Trap to the grave, so in this case our opponent's monster, to ritual summon a Masked Beast ritual. And then it equips itself to the monster that is summoned, granting it destruction prevention. Specifically, if it would be destroyed, you can destroy this card instead. Masked Beast of Restrict also has targeting prevention. If it's targeted by a card effect, we can send a Mask of Spell Trap from hand or field to the grave to negate that effect. And finally, the big payoff is that neither player can special summon monsters. So that's the restrictive controlling effect of this card. But even if they do manage to get rid of it, it has a floating effect allowing you to special summon any of the other Masked Beast monsters from your deck. So for example, Masked Beast of Chaos. And say we did have more Mask of Spell Traps on our field, then our opponent now wouldn't be able to set any cards, and we can continue controlling the pace of the duel by sending Mask of Spell Traps from our field to the grave to banish our opponent's cards 2 at a time. The other thing I want to show here is all those different interactions the custom monsters have with these Mask of cards. Whereas a card like Mask of Dispel, for example, basically has a useless effect. Thanks to Melkid, whichever spell we target with Mask of Dispel will now have its effects negated. Or similarly, if we use Mask of Weakness, we can target an opponent's monster, weaken it by 700 attack, and Melkid will negate that monster's effect to boot. Alternatively, if the negation isn't needed, you can always search out a Masked Beast monster to bring out your bosses. Meanwhile, we have Dark Shining Abyss on board, who once per turn nets us a draw anytime we activate a Mask of Spell Trap card. And the cool thing about this is that it's a soft once per turn, so if you have 2 on board, you get 2 draws. If you have 3, you get 3 draws. And since Abyss looks at not just card activation, but effect activations, continuous effects that repeatedly trigger, like Mask of Greed over here, can net us draws on a consistent basis, including on our opponent's turn. And then there's Des Gardius, who say we equip her with Mask of Brutality, she'll jump up to 2600 attack, and now when she battles, since she's equipped with a Mask of card, we'll be able to destroy one other card on our opponent's side of the field, and if we had equipped one of our opponent's monsters with another Mask of card, we'd be able to destroy 2 cards with Des Gardius. And those are some go-to combos with the Mask Custom archetype. So that does it for the Mask Custom support. Hope you enjoyed, and be sure to like and subscribe as we enter into a higher plane, the virtual world, coming next week.